desire that has come about becoming and being an entrepreneur is not always the right thing for everybody. It takes a different kind of soul and spirit. And in fact, I still vacillate myself about it constantly, about which things, do I feel might be better served to be in with an entrepreneurial environment, partnered with, belonging to, in that sense. And other types are more like, okay, I'm, going to have to go this, at least with myself and whoever else is in my entity at that time. And I really believe in partnership. So it generally isn't as a sole practitioner, sole entrepreneur in that way. And I think both are great, but I think it's great to understand, and be honest about maybe who you are. Maybe you really don't want to be an entrepreneur because of what that takes.
Right.
And you can still achieve unbelievable greatness just by looking at it slightly differently.
Yeah.
And so, I look at that. I look at that across a lot of, even so, I'm involved in a lot of sort of activist movements as well. And we just had a conversation the other day where they kept talking about something at a very, very, very important issue, health issue, not social. And they were talking about it as a brand. And I suddenly was like, it's sort of similar. I was like, you know what? This is really a movement. This is an opportunity to save lives, right? So let's look at it for what we want to accomplish, not for what we think it should be called. If that makes sense.
100%. Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So as you have stepped into kind of entrepreneurial life on a lot of different tracks, your most recent company that you are focused on, I'm sure there's probably others. Do you want to talk a little bit about what drew you to be focused in the senior area? Was it some of the work that your mom had done in the past, or is this something you've always been passionate about?
So actually, it's ironic that you asked me about my family, or I was talking about them first, is that it came about more from my father. And it was not until about a year or two ago I thought, oh my gosh, Gray Panthers, what was I thinking? Of course. But it really came from, and I don't know, so some people this will be about their grandparents, and some people will be, about their parents, and some people about themselves. But I went with my father one day to something, and he sort of had like a shakiness, and he started to need a walker. And my father had been in fact, my grandmother's recipe is the recipe for lima bean soup at the most famous deli in Beverly Hills called Nate and Al's.
Oh.
And my father would go there every day and see his friends like Lou Wasserman and all these people that he had grown up with, and literally in Ohio, and they'd all moved out, and other people. And he had a tremendous amount of pride. I didn't quite realize all of this until that very day. And he was absolutely beside himself that he was going to have to walk into Nate and Al's with this walker. And I just, thought, I've got to think about this. So I went out to sort of find out if I could find a better walker, like something that was maybe not so obvious with the tennis balls on the bottom. And, and I started looking around, and I went to drugstores, and I went to, all these stores, and nobody had anything. And if you ever go to a store for those kinds of products, it's usually still to this day very depressing.
Yeah.
Very kind of unkempt. There's no instructions. There's no informative. It's not, in this case, technology enabled. In that case, it was too early, but it's not technology enabled. It isn't beautifully designed. And I was like, why does it have to be that way? And there are sort of the beginnings of it now, but still, and so I started something a long time ago, and then I put it away when I met Blake Mykowski from Tom's, and I started working on a number of other projects, but it was always in my head as something that I wish that I had found the time to do. And we had written a business plan for it and everything. And I just sort of put it aside. And I ran into a friend of mine through my partner, actually, at memBrain, who's also a friend of mine from elementary school. And it turned out he had the same idea. So we just decided to join forces and see if we could bring those sort of components together to market. And to do, sort of really create an opportunity for that. And so, and what's come from that is really just this need to really first understand, what it is that's the driver, and things are changing, which is great because there's going to be sensors in your home. I mean, I think everybody wants to stay in their home as long as they can in a productive way.
Right.
And there's also a tremendous amount of things that people can do to prevent the situations that happen that then force people to leave where they are, go to assisted living and get help. And so prevention is something that is a huge part of this, because if you adopt principles of safety and utilize sort of ideas and keep yourself moving really throughout your life, if you are mobile and you have mobility, you will be in a better position. So if you start to do those things when you're 70 something, it's much more difficult, as it is to make any kind of lifestyle change. So the idea of thinking about these things earlier, sooner, as opposed to later, even if you don't need them, or because you need them for your parents, or because of any of those reasons, will only help you sort of, age with more mobility, which will give you so many more opportunities in life. I'll give you an example of something that's really simple, and then I don't talk about it too much more. But there was a woman in Greece, and she lived on an island, and she was, one of the Greek islands, and she was very senior, and she was very healthy and very active. And they started with her, and then they did this study where they realized that as you age in the United States, let's say you're looking after your parents, and you go over there and you try to make everything great for them, right? You try to make the phone is near them in case of emergency, the TV remote control is near them, the food and everything is near them, the book, anything they want, so they don't have to move around too much. That's actually the opposite. If you read the Blue Zones, you know that it would be the same thing. This woman in Greece, everything was far enough away that she had to walk, which was the plan. And in order for her to get up and do that, she was able to stay mobile. And it can be simple things like that. But it's about understanding that, like, while you're, obviously if somebody's injured, it's a different story. But I'm just saying, in thinking through how to make their lives better, it has a lot to do with understanding what will actually add to their lives.
Right, right, absolutely. My dad, I was going to add, my dad is legally blind and was formerly a soccer player and will not, take anything out onto the street. So we will have to circle back on this topic. Well, we are almost out of time. We're almost out of time, but I want to ask you one quick question for fun. So are you ready?
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
If you could wave a magic wand, what one thing that drives you crazy do you wish someone would find a solution for that would help your productivity and sanity in 1 minute or less?
Oh, God, I think about that every day. I would say some better way of organizing your email and then having it sort itself into some way that you wouldn't waste all of your time looking for the one that you can't find about some information, even when you have a great filing system.
I am so with you. We have to join forces and develop this because it's my biggest pet peeve as well. For sure. Absolutely.
I keep hoping for it. I keep thinking, my life is too short to be searching for this thing. I just created a new file hierarchy thing. We'll see how it goes. And I just created a new way of dropping ideas and to-dos and everything into like a form that populates. This is sort of obvious for everything else. But I've tried everything else under the sun, and that is actually working for me. So I'm hoping that between the two, it'll all
right. Well, that's
better.
a good one. I love it. Well, Liz, thank you so much for being on the show today. Your insights were really so great, and I loved your story and so inspiring, your family and the work that you've done. So if our listeners would like to learn a little bit more about you, your company, what you're working on, is there a website that you want to direct them to?
Well, that's sort of like that same thing. It's like the cobbler's children. We are in the process of redoing our website, so it's membrainllc.com. I think it's the actual right. I haven't looked in so long. But I mean, people could email me. I'm just maybe put something in the subject line so that I don't miss it. So I think with all the politics stuff, it's crazy. So it's liz@membrainllc.com. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Facebook. I'm Messenger. My Twitter's broken, so that's being fixed this week. But that's so pretty much that. I would say that's the idea. We haven't launched anything on Highly Mobile yet, but there are lots of other companies and projects, and I'm insanely curious. So I love to talk, and especially to support women and entrepreneurs in particular too.
Great. Well, thank you again, and tune in next week. Tune in next week for more startup hacks. We have another great show that you won't want to miss on the secret female founder strategies that can save you time and money when building your business. This podcast is brought to you by Women Entrepreneurs Global, the first startup studio and digital do-it-yourself startup platform for women. For more information on our guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit womenentrepreneurs.global. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapina, and I will see you next week. Thank you for joining Startup Hack. Tune in next week for more interviews. We have another great show you won't want to miss on the secret female founder strategies that can save you time and money when building your business. This podcast is brought to you by Women Entrepreneurs Global, the first startup studio and digital do-it-yourself startup platform for women. For more information on our guests, this podcast, and many other female founder programs, please visit womenentrepreneurs.global. I'm your host, Fernanda Carapina. See you next week.